Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar called Using CK-12 Science Resources to Increase Student Engagement. I'm Katie, and I'm here today with my colleague Ronan from the science team for today's conversation about how CK-12 resources can be used to encourage interaction and active learning of science. We're so glad to have you with us today for this interactive session, and we want you to leave with a clear understanding of what we have, where you can get it on CK-12, and how you might use these materials and tools for your science class. With that in mind, we'll be covering the following topics. The core part of this webinar will give you an overview of our science resources and where to find them, plus a look at our newest resources. Intermingled with these, we'll share some great strategies for implementing CK-12 in your class. We'll also discuss options for assigning these resources and seeing student progress, as well as our review and support features designed specifically for students. We'll wrap up the webinar with some great resources to support you as you use CK-12. And in addition to Q&A during the webinar, we'll stay on for any final questions at the end. Now, before we get started today, we want to make sure everyone is comfortable with both Zoom windows that we're using. So you should see both a chat and a Q&A window. So during today's presentation, whenever you have a question you'd like the CK-12 team to answer, please post it in the Q&A window. That is the window we'll be monitoring throughout the presentation and making sure that we get to all of your questions. The chat window is a place for a community conversation. Some of you guys have already started to introduce yourselves, so feel free to do so. Share where you live, the subject you teach. Just make sure in the chat window that you're sending any general posts to everyone and not just to the CK-12 team and our panelists. That way everyone gets to kind of see who's here and what's happening. This is going to be maybe a 45-minute or so webinar. We'll break a few times to answer questions live, and we'll stay on at the end, as I said, to address any unanswered questions. So go ahead and put those in the Q&A window anytime. We're also recording this webinar, and we're going to post it at ck12.org/webinars in the archive section by early next week. So that way you can go back and revisit anything you learned today or share the presentation with a friend or colleague. So with that, let me turn this over to Ronan, who's going to start showing you our science content on CK-12.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ronan, and I am one of the science content generalists here at CK-12. And I'm going to spend some time today giving all of you a bit of a tour of the site, show you what kind of science resources you can find, where you can find them, and how you can possibly use them in your classrooms. So here we are on the CK-12 homepage. Our main science contents can be found here in the subjects tab, or you can use the search bar if you know specifically what sort of lessons you're looking for. Our major offerings are middle school and high school, but we do have elementary science books. These are in our FlexBook 1.0 format. So if I opened up our 4th grade science book, you can navigate the table of contents. We have some physical science, some earth science, and some life science content here in 4th grade. Lots of subtopics, and then each lesson has a list. It has some vocabulary, it has readings, some illustrations, and then usually some review questions at the end. And sometimes there are related resources. Not every book has them, but there are some related resources in our elementary science content. So that is our FlexBook 1.0 offering. There are also here in the subjects tab, we have some FlexBook 1.0, some of the elective sciences that you might teach, things like astronomy and health. Although for those subjects, you can also find some of that in our main offerings in our FlexBook 2.0. So our earth science book does have some space content as well, if you were to teach an astronomy elective, for example. And biology has a very extensive human biology chapter that would work possibly that could be used for a health class or an anatomy and physiology elective. So let's take a look at these FlexBook 2.0s. As I said, that's our main offering. These are for middle school and high school science. So I'm going to start off here in the earth science book. And this will bring me to the table of contents. So our FlexBook 2.0s are divided up into pretty small bite-sized chunks. So if I want to teach a unit on plate tectonics, we actually have lots of very short sub-lessons within that topic. So our chapters have a lot of sections. Each section is a very small bite-sized topic. But when you open up a section, so let's go to the theory of plate tectonics. And this is a basic CK-12 lesson page for a FlexBook 2.0. So we start off, we have an opening image, we have text. There is a highlighter tool, and we have nice little pop-up vocabulary words. So all of the words that are in green, that's a vocabulary term, which if you hover your mouse over it, the definition pops up right on the screen. We have, again, text illustrations. There are some embedded videos. Most reads have at least one. Some have two embedded videos. Within the read, we have a summary. We have a review section. And that is sort of the base lesson. The other, so, you know, that's your base read. But then we also have a really cool feature. This is our adaptive practice. And I do want to show this. Every FlexBook 2.0 read does have an associated adaptive practice. So these practice questions, if I open it up, you can assign these to the students along with the read. And we get a mix of multiple choice questions. So we can talk about plate tectonics. We've got, you know, select all kinds of questions. We've got multiple choice. So right, if we get the right answer, it says so. If we get the wrong answer, it will also. I do want to go through just a few more. So here we are. This is actually a new feature we just released. Here is our fill in the blank question. This is pretty exciting. We just released this a couple weeks ago. If there is a fill in the blank question with a vocabulary word, students can type it in. And actually, if it is spelled incorrectly, we just launched our spell check. So I have spelled plate boundary incorrectly. And we have our little orange blob friend Flexi here pops up and says, hey, maybe your spelling is off. So usually the system will catch. If a student makes a typo, it'll usually catch that, ask them if they meant the right word, and then they will still be able to get the correct answer. Flexi also here in adaptive practice is down in the corner, which can give some hints. So it's trying to, you know, remember where in this, for this question, trying to remind students where a plate boundary is and what happens at a plate boundary. So I'll come out of adaptive practice for now and go back to the read. So here we are on the main read page again. So in addition to the read and the adaptive practice, if you click on your little toolbar over here and go to related content, there are some extra mix of readings, videos, and some certain reads also have interactives. So I am going to show you some of the different interactive offerings that we have across our site. And so the first one that I want to show you, which is associated with our continental drift here, is the Plex tool. So when you launch a Plex, this is a pretty straightforward, simple interactive. This is, there is a slider bar. And so in this case, we can do seafloor spreading, and you can see our mid-ocean ridge forming, our continents moving apart, and just sliding our bar over time. So students can play with the slider bar a little bit. If we hit the challenge button, then it will give them some questions to review. Usually the first couple questions are multiple choice. So you can get through those. So this is a divergent boundary. And I do want to get to the last question here. So the last question in every Plex is an open discussion. So this is a little bit more of a broad concept. So this is usually good to do either as a homework assignment that students could do by themselves and, write a little response for you. But this would also work pretty well, I think, as an in-class activity, where you can actually have students then pair up with a partner and talk about what might be happening at these different plate boundaries. So you can also assign these to your classes pretty easily. There are some guidelines here if you click the 3 dots on a little bit more on how to use the tool. And if you click the CK-12 icon in the corner, we'll come back home. And this shows you, so this has brought us to our entire library of all of the Plex. So we do have some Plex activities in all of our branches of math and science. So you can explore these, use them in your classes. They're all very similar format, but we have a pretty extensive catalog of those. So I'll jump back to the CK-12 homepage now. You can, if you want to browse the Plex, you can also go into the Explore tab here. And so you can find our browse our catalog of all of the Plex in one place, all of the FlexBooks, and I'll show you the simulations in just a moment. So this is slightly more involved interactive. So let's say now, instead of navigating through a book or by subject, I just want to look for a topic. So let's go to a physics topic this time. So let's say I want to teach about acceleration. So I can type acceleration in the search bar. We do get a physics, which is our high school version. We also get physical science, which is our middle school level. So we'll come over to the middle school physical science acceleration lesson. So if you click over here, then this corner, you can get the table of contents, navigate around the book, see the related lessons. The layout of the read is the same across all subjects. We have introductions. We still have those pop-up vocabulary. We have embedded videos. And then we also have these more involved interactives. So these simulations are mostly exist in certain physics and chemistry topics. So I'll just open up the simulation here. So this is attached to the acceleration lesson, and this is all about model rockets. So if I start it, it starts with a little video. And I'll go ahead and skip to the end of the video, but it does have a little introductory description of what the model rocket does. Up it goes up, comes back down. And once the video finishes playing, then it comes into sort of the sandbox part of the simulation. So this gives multiple sliders for students to adjust. So let's say that I want to make my rocket heavier. Can do that. So we've made our rocket heavier, but we haven't really increased the thrust, so it does not go very far. We can make our rocket super light. And this time goes pretty high up. It's also making graphs of altitude and velocity as the rocket flies into the sky, and then reaches zero velocity at the top, and we're back down at the bottom. So this tool is really cool. These kinds of things can, again, they can be homework, they can be an in-class activity. As I said, these are mostly for physics and chemistry. These are great if you want to have something like a lab activity, but don't necessarily have all of the physical supplies. Students can do virtual labs, and we do have in all of our simulations, if you click the 3 dots in the corner here, there is an attached worksheet that can kind of give you some of that scaffolding to guide students through a lab. Also, once they finished with this section playing around with the sliders, you can hit the next arrow, and It can bring some other questions and answers, and then some related questions and answers. So we can go to then a little blurb about real spaceships and how that is related to the model rocket launch. So get out of that again, hitting the CK-12 button here. This lands us back on the simulations catalog. So we have lots of different topics within physics, also within chemistry. And it also comes with a search bar. So if I wanted to just, maybe do something, if you wanted to search for some different chemistry topics, we've got states of matter, we've got hydrogen bonds, solutions, all sorts of fun simulations that can be plugged in as a sort of lab type activity. So that is the simulation. We also have then our newest generation of interactives, which is currently these are in select biology reads in high school biology. So this is again, same FlexBook 2.0 page. We can have our table of contents in this corner. We've got our adaptive practice over here. And then, we have our pop-up vocabularies, we have our read. And some of these, our newest interactives have these smart illustrations. So this is on the ecological succession read, where this is similar to a Plex. It is just a slider bar that students can interact with. But as you can see, the art is a lot more detailed. The animation's a lot smoother than the first generation Plex. But students can see, both our primary and secondary succession through, ecological changes. We have secondary succession as well on this read. So we have a big cursor to kind of alert students that this illustration is clickable. We get our forest fire. We get all of our grass growing back and all of our trees growing back, and it's all very nice. This is one style of smart illustrations. Some of these reads also have some embedded questions within the text, some practice questions that students can answer. And then we do have some other styles of these inline interactives in the text. So over here in the DNA structure read for biology, this one we do have a nice animated illustration here right at the top of the read, seeing our double helix form a twisted ladder. Now, you'll notice that here we not only have our green words that just are our nice vocabulary, we have some blue words. So these are actually linked to our illustrations. So we have the bases of DNA, adenine, guanine, cytosine. So if I hover over this one, then it actually highlights the part of the illustration which this term is referring to. Now, this illustration is also clickable. We can increase or decrease the amount of each base of DNA. And students can explore here then that, interestingly, as they increase the amount of adenine, thymine always goes with it, right? Thymine increases with adenine, and when they are changing those, then guanine and cytosine are going down. So there's always the same amounts of these two and the same amounts of those two, which then if they continue down the read, this then adds like, okay, well, there's always the same amount of both of these bases. So what does that mean? Well, that means that they must match together. So we have another smart illustration here where we can see the parts of a DNA molecule. So we can hover over our polynucleotide chains, our phosphate groups, our deoxyribose sugar getting highlighted again. And then we have another interactive activity here. So there's our nice little icon that tells you that this is an interactive image, and students can then build their DNA. So We have our base pairs, so students can see then how these things actually pair up, that we are putting them together. If I tried to put the wrong one, it just goes back. Yep, those don't linked. These ones link, and we can just keep building DNA. And just kind of get the idea of how that works. So this is just some really cool interactive processes. And then we have another animated illustration here showing DNA replication. So we got our, so the students can actually click through each step of DNA replication, and it is actually shown in an animated format. So these animated illustrations are currently in some of in high school biology, some of the reads. There is also some in our math book offerings. So if you teach multiple subjects, or if you know math teachers, there are some illustrations like this in some of the math books as well. So coming down to the bottom then, so this read is very involved, but we then have the same summary, the same review questions, and then we also have Flexi. So I showed you within adaptive practice, Flexi delivers the hints and will pop up and tell students about their typos and help with the spell check. Outside of adaptive practice, when students are out on other parts of the read, Flexi can answer all sorts of questions about both their math and science topics, as well as how to use the CK-12 site. So if I wanted to ask Flexi, what is convection, if I just wanted to define one of our vocab terms, Flexi then pulls out the definition of convection. I could ask a little bit more of a curiosity-driven question. Maybe let's ask Flexi, how deep is the ocean? And Flexi returns with the average and then the deepest depth of the ocean trenches. Flexi can sometimes also surface illustrations. So a lot of the answers Flexi gives are text-based, but I can also ask Flexi for a picture of the solar system. And so this one, I have to expand it out, but there they are. We have a nice diagram of all of the planets in the solar system. Flexi also has a calculator function if I wanted to, just solve basic arithmetic, but also some algebraic equations. So if I wanted to say 25 equals 16 plus y squared. So for these algebra equations, Flexi will actually deliver. First of all, Flexi will confirm that it has understood what you have typed in. It'll assume what it wants you to do, solve for y. And then it can also give the solutions step by step using different methods, whether they want to do. So the algebra solver is also pretty powerful for this. So, if you are teaching some of those more math-based physics and chemistry courses, Flexi is a nice tool right here in CK-12 that can help students with some of the calculation and algebra in their physics questions, and while giving these nice step-by-step solutions so that students can actually understand and remember how the algebra functions. So Katie, if you want to go back to the slides. Flexi also has the ability to help you navigate the site. So we've got some of these sort of personal assistant features. So if you wanted to, as a teacher, figure out how to set up a class or how to assign a read to students, you can actually ask Flexi, and Flexi will return with the answer from our help center. You can also set Flexi to give reminders to your students. So Flexi will pop up with a notification if the due date is coming up, or if the student is a little late, but they can still turn it in. Flexi will pop up and remind them of that, which is all pretty, so it's a pretty cool tool that can really kind of help guide you around the site, as well as behave as a little tutor bot to help answer questions in the classroom or for homework. So that's kind of the tour of our interactive features and our books. So I think let's see how we are doing on questions.
Thank you so much. That was extremely helpful to kind of see all the moving parts and different pieces and stuff that you guys are working on these days. We do have some questions that our team has been working on, and then also one that I want to actually take because I have a great answer for it. So the question is about teacher who has students who are one-to-one with devices, but they have a paper interactive notebook. And she's asking about ideas for how to use this online curriculum while having that as a reference. And one of the middle schools that I used to visit in New Jersey actually did this in their class. So they customized a FlexBook to meet kind of their needs. And then they had students put different pieces in there. So it might be the answers to the review questions at the end of a lesson sometimes, or the key vocabulary. They might have them go through and highlight key information using our annotation tools and then transfer that into their notebook as a way to study for a quiz or a test. So there's definitely pieces that you could pull out and have students kind of put stuff there, or, print out a key diagram and have them label that in their interactive notebook on paper. So by all means, I've seen it happen where a school is using both the digital piece as an interactive feedback online learning platform, and then also have a paper notebook as their reference for the long haul or for kind of in-class work or things like that. So if you have other comments on that, go ahead and add that. But we did have a question on where I can find unit tests. That's in the chat. If you guys can just kind of try to keep your questions in the Q&A, that will be helpful for our team to make sure that we answer all of them and we don't miss any. But we have older unit tests. We have a quizzes and test books for kind of our older, what we called our 1.x or our original books. The newer biology books, they're customized enough that we don't build fixed unit tests for stuff, but you can customize our practice into a quiz and pull sections from all the different lessons within a chapter that you guys decided to use. And so when I show you resources at the end of the lesson today, the end of the session today, I will show you where to find our quick videos. And in that, there are quick videos on how to customize our practice into a quiz. So it's really easy to pull together kind of your custom unit piece based on if you're using our full set of lessons or parts of our lessons. Some students do use our challenges that are kind of broken up in between there, but that's just a reference check for them. It's not kind of a unit test like you're asking for there. It looks like we're getting some other questions in here. We have a question on Canvas LMS. It does integrate with Canvas. I will show you a link to our page that tells you about that in our resource part of this webinar. And the embedded quizzes are inline question checks. You don't grade those. So when Ronan was showing you kind of anything in line with the text itself, that's not graded, but the attached green button that he clicked that previewed it, those are automatically graded if you assign it, and those grades show up in Canvas, and you can kind of see that as well. And then we have two more questions in here. So one is printer-friendly chapter materials. We do have a lot of interactives in our newest books. If you customize anything, you can download those resources. But if you are trying to find more print-friendly versions, I would check some of our older textbooks because those are more text and print designed versus our newer, more interactive ones. And then it looks like we have an extremely long question. So there are some questions in terms of accessibility. We have been adding more and more accessibility to our platform. So you'll see that built in. Our text works with text-to-speech readers and things like that. I will try to follow up with you for specifics on a particular piece because I've had schools work with deaf learners and kind of adjust resources accordingly to address that piece. But yeah, so I think that's it for questions in there right now. I will follow up a little more with that last one on specific examples, but we definitely do take that into account and have some resources from there. Ronan, anything else you want to add at this point in time, or should I jump back into kind of how assignments work? Because I know we had that question on an LMS integration.
Yeah, I think I would like to just really quick talk about the customization aspect. So, because you did kind of allude to it when you were answering one of those questions. So all of these books, when you do have a teacher account, you can use our books as they are and assign lessons directly to students. You can also compile from our existing lessons. You can sort of compile into your own book, just that you can kind of keep using. Put the lessons in the order that you like, and you can even edit and add some more localized examples if you wanted to. So there is some customizable features where you can create your own copy to assign with students as well.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, with that, let me talk a little bit about what you can see and how it works for any of our content, whether that's content you've customized or content that you're using that's straight from CK-12. So as Ronan showed you, we have adaptive practice attached to all of our 2.0 concept collection lessons. So our middle school, high school math and science has this built in. And that is adaptive. So it's going to change based on how students are doing. They'll get easier or harder questions. They'll go from there. As Ronan showed, we have the spell check that just came out, or let's say someone said rainfall instead of precipitation. We might recommend, I think you meant something similar. Do you want to try again? And so we'll kind of guide them if they're giving us answers that make sense, but that aren't quite what we're looking for. So all sorts of places there. And this is really one of the best ways to check student progress. So this is a great teaching strategy. Just kind of use this adaptive practice to check their progress. You can access it directly through a FlexBook 2.0 lesson or our adaptive practice browser, which is ck12.org/practice. And that's going to do the heavy lifting for you. So it will offer students recommendations in the moment. If you want to create your own questions and assignments, you can set up what we call a quiz on CK-12 and assign it to your students. I kind of referenced that earlier. And you can assign our interactive Plex and simulations for students to review on their own before coming to class, or as a start to class, or an exit ticket, or all sorts of options as you go through. But these can be assigned to students. We have kind of how you assign that is either through a CK-12 class or one of our integrated learning management systems. So if you use Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology, we've actually updated those images. So you'll see a slightly different layout when you get to those pages. We recently updated all of them, but they have videos, they have step-by-step guides to get stuff set up within those platforms. And then also the ability to kind of watch videos to see, okay, well, how do I sign within Canvas, or how do I see reports within Google Classroom, or, all those pieces are set up on those pages as great references. So check those out, and you can access those via kind of our integrations, our tools and app page. You'll find that in the footer or directly at these short URLs. And then the key thing is, if you're you can share CK-12 via a link. So I could pull up a lesson, I could pull up a Plex interactive or a simulation, all sorts of options, and I can share them with anyone. I could share them with a colleague, with my students. But one strategy really is that assignment piece. And one of the benefits of that is to show you how students are actually doing. So if you assign anything with practice or a quiz, then we're going to give you an overview of how students are doing that, plus the detailed information for each assignment. So you can see here the summer 2019 piece. It has, percent grades for practice and quizzes. Those are completion scores for practice out of a goal of 10 correct, or for a quiz, their actual assessment score for that quiz. And then the other types of resources of video and interactive, those are really learning. So they just get complete or incomplete credit. The practice, in addition to that completion score, we give a skill level from beginning to mastery. And so that's the bottom left corner where you can toggle quickly back and forth on this report and see that skill level and get a sense of how that plays out and what that looks like. Or you can actually open up anyone's answers and you'll see here the easy, medium, and hard piece. And then below that, it actually goes into the specific answers and questions. Do they have a recommendation for a paragraph? Is there a hint that they used? And it tells you all of that information to see both the big picture as well as the specific pieces. One thing to keep in mind that I, as a former teacher, this particular example, they spent 17 minutes answering 13 questions. Now, that might be reasonable for something where they're doing work out. If it's saying, hey, they spent an hour answering 5 questions or 12 seconds answering 5 questions, you may want to work with them on kind of how they're actually spending their time, their study time, and their homework. And that might be a great starting place, especially if a student is struggling with their actually being hitting that mastery level. Another piece that comes out if you choose to assign a FlexBook 2.0 lesson with practice attached to it or a quiz attached to it, we're going to give you some extra information. So this lets you see the time the student spent on the lesson, a histogram of where they spent that time, the skill level they received on the practice or the actual score for their quiz, and then an engagement score. That engagement score gives you an indicator of how much each student interacted with the lesson. That tells you, are they, watching videos, using those interactives, highlighting, engaging in some way, shape, or form, and not just kind of scrolling really fast to the bottom and jumping on the practice. You'll also see a whole class review mapping that skill level to the engagement. And then as part of it, we give you recommendations. So these students that might be struggling with some of the questions, we recommend they revisit these particular paragraphs, or here's some additional related modalities. So a video or an interactive or something that they can use for future learning. And one of my favorites is here's some questions your students are struggling with. So if the students go home and they all do their homework, you can come up in and you can say, okay, well, it looks like the system says there's a batch of questions that multiple students in my class are struggling with. Maybe I'll start class that next day as we go through and figure it out from there. One piece that comes in, so our CK-12 science content is going to show teachers and students the relevant paragraphs that they should review based on missed questions. So if they're in the lesson, they'll see that little green dot on the left right near that water piece there. Or if they're looking at their report from their practice, they'll see a little note that says go to paragraph, or kind of jumps them to something that might help them as they review. And that's going to pull up the question that they struggled with, as well as some sort of flashcard. It might be some text or a hint or something like that. But it's really drawing their attention back to saying, you're struggling with this material, and here's something within our lesson that is going to help you understand it better. We also have a resource for students in the toolbar. So if you as a teacher want to see this, just log out and you can check any lesson and you'll see it as if a student. And this has, in addition to the core lesson, we've pulled a bunch of stuff out of our toolbar to make it really easy for students to review. So they're going to see an overview or summary of that science lesson, core vocabulary, maybe some extra practice with flashcards or key images. That's all available for them to just say, okay, well, this is what we want to do. This might be, I already went through the lesson, I already did the practice, but I need to go back and review for a quiz. And this might be a good help for you to think about for that interactive notebook. These are some of the pieces that we think are the most important for review that a student would want to take with them out of this lesson. And then you'll also see related content. So the related content down in the bottom left, that's in our toolbar. You as a teacher can access that, but we pull it out to make it easier for students to check out, a video or an interactive or something like that. And they can even actually see questions that other students have asked Flexi there as well. So lots of options to help them review and get a sense of, there's our core lesson. Here's a chance to go back and see certain pieces. Our annotation tools help students stay engaged as they interact with the learning content. So the highlights and notes that students take are going to appear in their individual account under the toolbar, and they can go revisit those notes and annotations at any time to help with self-study. So that's something to keep in mind, that if you want to have students actively read, maybe highlight keywords or pick a color to say, okay, these are parts of the lesson I had questions on, and we're going to, go through those in class tomorrow or things like that. So keep those in mind as an option to leverage that tool. We also have a built-in Google Translate option that converts the core text to other languages. This helps support students and families where English isn't their primary language. We have unique URLs for each of our FlexBooks. So one thing you can do is you can copy the URL from the FlexBook you're using, share that with families, and then include instructions for how parents and guardians can use that Google Translate to instantly change the content into their home language. And that will help them assist their children with learning. So something to keep in mind, both for students in your class, as well as for their families. And someone was asking about print versions. You can download customized FlexBooks offline. If you need one of our books, just reach out to us and we can talk to you about getting access to a PDF of that. But remember that kind of the best option is going to be that online interactive with that exploratory component, immediate feedback for students, and all the rest. But we do realize that offline options are needed for some students and some situations. You can also do that for your quizzes or practice. So you can download a worksheet. If it's a quiz, it will download the entire quiz. If it's practice, it will pull a subset, trying to balance easy and medium and hard questions and different types of questions to get kind of a reasonable homework practice sheet for that topic for students. So I'm going to do a check-in again with Q&A. It looks like we have a question on, what is an overview of the subjects for the different resources that are on here. If you look at kind of the descriptions of the books, that might be the best description for kind of what's covered there, or you could even consider looking at the table of contents to get a sense of like what's covered in our bio class. Like that table of contents is going to give you the different topics that are covered there. And then if you're customizing that and you're taking pieces out, then your book's going to be a little different than the next school or the next, parent homeschooling their kids. So keep in mind with that as an option from there. I'm going to give kind of the last call for questions. I'm going to go through some resources right now for all of you guys so that you know where to go to find out more information. But if you guys have questions, then go ahead and type those into Q&A right now so we make sure that when we're done going through the resources, we see all your questions and we're not thinking we're all done and then you're typing one as we close out the webinar. So go ahead and add those in right now and we'll go from there. With that, we have an overview page. So for someone who's kind of asking about what types of resources we have, then this is something here. So overview of CK-12 resources. It has our FlexBooks, our adaptive practice, kind of different pieces there. So go ahead and check that out to learn more. You can also download a quick flyer that gives a little brief description of the different types of resources that we have available. If you have questions, you can use the help link in our footer or go to ck12.org/help, or even ask Flexi within one of our FlexBooks or directly at ck12.org/Flexi. Those are going to give you quick articles, tips for using. We'll pull up some videos to help out, all sorts of options to support you as you're learning. And then our webinars page. So ck12.org/webinars. If you registered directly through a social post or an email or something like that, you may not have made it to this page, but that page is going to be super helpful, especially for those of you that are asking about recordings. So you can see here, we did this webinar. Actually, it looks like a year ago to the day. And we are going to replace that video with today's video. So you have the most up-to-date content. So that will get swapped out by early next week. And you can also see upcoming webinars, register for that Canvas webinar if you want, and go from there. Additionally, if you haven't visited our YouTube channel, you're going to find a wide range of videos from content tutorials to testimonials to previous webinars. And I want to call special attention to the quick overviews playlist. So these are bite-sized videos. They're a couple minutes in length. They quickly get you the help you need on a variety of CK-12 tasks. So you can see here getting started with Canvas or Schoology, assigning, insights. There's one on customizing practice to quizzes. And there's a direct link to that at the bottom of the webinars page if you want to go jump straight to the quick overviews and not kind of wander through all of YouTube. If you are super excited about CK-12 and you just can't wait to learn more, then I would recommend going to ck12.org/certified. In 2020, we converted our certified educator program to an on-demand self-paced course. And that will allow you to dive deeper into all of our tools and resources, join a community of educators that are becoming certified, and there is no cost and you can do it on your own schedule. So go ahead and do that. Click join to register, and you're going to get dropped into a CK-12 class. You'll have a FlexBook to work off of, work your way through some text and videos, and do the attached quizzes, and go from there. And then if you want additional help, you're more than welcome to check out our new trainer program. There's a link to that in our footer, or ck12.co/trainer. And those are teachers that have made it through our certified educator program, have applied, gone through additional training with us, and have a good understanding of what we offer in a way that they could support you as well. So you're more than welcome to reach out to them, learn more about that program and how they can come to your school or district virtually or whatnot to do professional development. So some pieces to check out there for additional support. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We hope you experiment, use our CK-12 science resources this year at any point in time, pick it up. It's free, so you can start tomorrow. And we'd love to hear how it goes. So please feel free to reach out to us at support@ck12.org. If we answered a question for you today and you want more in-depth answers, or if you think of a question in 20 minutes after we're gone, go ahead and reach out to us. You can also connect with us on social media at CK-12 Foundation, and share your experiences and favorite CK-12 resources with others through that as well. So I know we have a couple questions still in the Q&A, so we're going to go ahead and jump over to that. If you're all set, you're more than welcome to go, but feel free to stay on and we'll go from there. So Ronan, it looks like you were tagged one to ask live, to answer live.
Yeah. I saw there was a question asking for astronomy or geology textbook for high school. So we do have both of those in the FlexBook 1.0 format as readings. So both of those books are on the site and totally usable. I would also say that for a 9th grade earth science, sort of an introductory earth science, you can probably use the main FlexBook 2.0. While it is detailed enough that for a high school, for an intro level high school course, it would the main earth science 2.0 book would be workable. Maybe not for like an AP environmental science course, but the main for a lot of intro high school, you could also use the main one in addition to the 1.0 that we do have that is written for the high school level.
Great. Ronan, if you want to actually share your screen again, you're more than welcome to show Sarah where that particular resource is, if that would be helpful, if it's not kind of like in the main piece.
Yeah, I can do that. So if you just go here to the subjects tab, so we do have astronomy here, and so that'll bring you to the astronomy book. And if we are searching, so this is our astronomy book for high school. This is our FlexBook 1.0. And then the high school earth science should be able to pull up that book in the search page here.
It may just take a second as we're streaming.
Yeah, it may take a second. The other thing that while it's loading, the other thing is we do also have access to some of our user-generated content in other subjects. So these are all crowdsourced books. So if you have other subjects, these are all in the 1.0 format, but if you have other subjects that you would like to teach on our platform, these are all written often by and for other teachers. I don't know if this
let me swap this over and share for a second. So one other option to explore some of our older books is under our Explore menu. And if you go to our original FlexBooks, this covers all FlexBooks versus just FlexBooks 2.0. So I love this menu because it's a quick overview of like the different types of resources. But if I go to FlexBooks here, I can then kind of filter by subjects. So you were talking earth science for high school, or so if we did earth science here, and we search, you can see both our middle school as well as our high school books here. So there's some different resources in terms of that piece if you're trying to find pieces, or you can search across stuff. Did that get at the piece that you needed there? We also have a question. I'm going to go with yes, unless they hear otherwise. So hopefully we're good. But there's a question about an environmental science textbook, and that's not a core resource that we have right off the bat. But it is something that I know other districts have created. So one option is to explore in schools or to search. And I know one particular school has it because I was talking to them about their resources. I haven't dug deeply into this book. So any user created content you're exploring, you just want to vet a little bit more deeply than the CK-12 stuff, because we maintain the quality of our resources. But I don't dig all the time into some other ones. But we have a schools page that shows a great number of resources that schools have created. This one in particular, they actually created like a pharmacy tech book to help students who are trying to take that test and get that certification. But Virginia Beach also created an environmental science FlexBook. So that might be something that you could say, okay, here's a great starting place. And then I'm going to pull from CK-12 and different pieces and kind of mix and match and make my own version. So even if we don't have it, you may find it in our schools, or you may find it in, if I search environmental science.
Yeah, I will add there are definitely some chapters in the Earth Science FlexBook 2.0 that include human environment interactions, ecosystems, energy, that would probably be a good base for some environmental science classes as well.
Yeah, and you can see like there's one, effect on the environment on genetics and biology advanced concepts. You could search for that particular topic. Again, our core content stays here, and then community contributed is going to be here. So, go ahead and check out both. Just know the piece from our core content versus community contributed, as well as kind of filtering by the type that you want from there. Anything else today? It looks like we are out of questions at this point in time. But if you guys do have any questions as they come up, again, feel free to reach out to us at support@ck12.org. And we are here to help from that point forward. So thanks so much for joining us today, and we will see you the next time.